Welcome to Visions of the Past. I'm Nancy D. In our last episode, we learned in 1845 the Oregon Trail from Illinois and Missouri to Oregon City was developing, bringing only a few wagons as far as the Dalles before rafting down the Columbia River, an expensive, hazardous way to get from the Dalles to Portland. Philip Foster acquired property east of Oregon City, where Eagle Creek is now located at the junction of Highway 211 and 224, setting up a place to buy supplies. Little did Foster know about the route Samuel K. Barlow was about to carve around Mount Hood, let alone the large part of Oregon history he would play. Join us as we explore the Barlow Road, the route around the southern side of the mountain. I'm pleased to introduce the author of 80 Years in the Same Neighborhood, Mr. Phil Junsrud. Welcome to Visions of the Past, Phil.
Thank you.
Phil, the recollections in this book are priceless, and when speaking of John Bacon of the Barlow Party, you mentioned him playing a big part in the rescue. Can you elaborate on him and the Barlow Party rescue for our viewers?
Sam Barlow was doing something very new when he led the expedition around the south side of Mount Hood, because previous to that, all the covered wagons that had come to the Dalles had to go down the Columbia River, and that was very hazardous. So he tried this trip, and he tried it late in September to try to get around the south side of Mount Hood. And this was complete wilderness, and you can imagine no roads or anything. The nearer they got to Mount Hood, they got into timber, heavy timber, and it was very slow going. And it got it to be into October and late October, and they were making very little progress, and they could see that they would be caught in heavy snows, and they would have actually be stranded there. So they knew they had to do something. So they built a big log house and to store their things in, and left the wagons there and planned to walk out. There are so many stories on what happened in this rescue. Its history is a little bit cloudy on this, and nobody knows really for sure. But we think that Barlow and John Bacon, and possibly one of the leaders of one of the other wagon trains, went ahead to scout, and they eventually found their way down over the zigzag precipice where the wagons eventually would be let down, and down through what is now sandy, rhododendron, sandy Marmot Ridge, and then eventually to Eagle Creek, where there was some civilization.
Was it more of a mountain rescue, or were they caught without provisions in the snow?
It was mainly a matter of the weather. They couldn't move the wagons, and they couldn't cut their way through. They could see they would be stranded and then be helpless. So the rescuing scouts that went ahead came back with supplies and horses and food, and led the rest of them out, and eventually got to Oregon City. And I think the important thing is that they all got through to Oregon City in December. And Sam Barlow immediately went to the territorial government, which was in Oregon City, and obtained a charter to build that road, which was the first road over the Cascades in this part of the Oregon. And that was approved almost immediately, because Governor Abernathy was in Oregon City, and there wasn't a lot of bureaucratic work to go through. So immediately in 1846, then, they started working on making a road out of that trail. And this went on for several years, and the progress was pretty slow on it. But they gradually improved things so that wagons could get through. That probably 50,000 people came over the Barlow Road, which was the last leg of the Oregon Trail. It was a toll road, and they had the toll gate at a number of different places, but the main one was about a mile above Rhododendron. We know the area right where it was. Yeah.
The historical museum that will be going in across from City Hall will be exciting. When is the project going to start getting underway, and is there a prospective finish date on that?
There is a groundbreaking, I believe, set for about June the 4th. And at this point, I don't think we can predict the finishing date because all the funds haven't been raised.
Thank you so much, Phil. We have just so thoroughly enjoyed your book, 80 Years in the Same Neighborhood.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy D. Join us next month as we look into the lives of the first settlers in the Sandy area. Bye.